have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait till next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast.
Hello and welcome to the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, episode 156, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. And on today's show, we are here to help you finish strong your fantasy football seasons. And I'll tell you what right now, you can get a good look at a T-bone by sticking your head up a bull's arse, but I'd rather take the butcher's word for it. And while you're here, why don't you take the fantasy analyst's word here for it? When we're talking about fantasy advice, we are here to help you. No need to stick your head up anywhere you don't want it to be, because me, Major, and Tara, we've done all the hard work for you. Now it's time for you to take that information and apply it to your weekly lineups. You don't trust us? That's okay. Head to fantasypoints.com. They got everything else that you could possibly need right now, from college football to fantasy football to the NFL. They've got whatever package you could possibly want. And if you get that subscription today, you get a hookup with that Discord channel where you can talk to us. John Hansen, Joe Dolan, Scott Baird, Graham Barfield, Tom Broley, Wes Huber, yada, yada, yada. So many great fantasy football minds in one space. And save yourself 10% by using promo code 22Vipers10. Now let's get into week number 13 here on the ViperCast. And we got to go through this injury rundown because it is something. We've got people going down left, right, and center this week, starting with my man. I'm still in a bit of a grieving process here since we lost Darnell Mooney to that ankle injury, but that is nothing compared to what we've seen at the running back position. Michael Carter, he has that ankle injury. Originally, we were hearing 2 to 5 weeks. It looks like it's going to be maybe this week he could potentially come back. Eli Mitchell, unfortunately, will not come back this week. He is out 6 to 8 weeks. Christian McCaffrey, it's all about the NBA here and load management for CMC there. He's got that patella tendonitis thing going on for him. Alvin Kamara, he was dinged up. Damian Harris, thigh injury. He will not play on Thursday Night Football, and he is considered to be week to week. Najee Harris, he avoided major injury there with that abdominal, but he is still someone to be monitoring this week. Joe Mixon is still in concussion protocol as of Wednesday there. Josh Jacobs, calf strain. Travis Etienne, he was cleared to return, but we don't know how close he actually is being able to take a full load here this week. And then at the other positions here, Deebo Samuel, Aaron Rodgers. We've got Allen Robinson going on the IR there. And we've also got Jamar Chase potentially returning this week. So many injuries here for us to kind of work our way through. So many big names who may or may not be available this week. So make sure that we are paying attention to that injury report heading up to this week. And make sure to check out that Fantasy Points podcast there with Edwin Porras there as he breaks down each and every injury and what you can expect moving forward. Now, I guess outside of those injuries, some other big news happens to be the Melvin Gordon signing there in Kansas City onto the practice squad. It might be something. It might not be anything. I mean, I think we have to agree here, Tara, I'll put it your way and then get Major's rebuttal. When we look at this Chiefs team, they already have Isaiah Pacheco basically being the runner. They've already got Jet McKinnon in that role as a pass catcher. Where does Melvin Gordon factor into this? Like, is there a position specifically for fumbling the ball, I guess is what I'm asking.
Guys, be respectful.
I mean, ask Ronald Jones. So, yeah, there's a position. It might not be a lot, but just because you fumble the ball doesn't mean that Andy Reid doesn't feel like he can't rehabilitate you, maybe. So, I don't know. Melvin Gordon, I don't really think it's a threat. I think people would maybe want it to be a threat, but they're fine with the way that they're operating right now. And I don't see a reason for them to suddenly decide that Isaiah Pacheco isn't getting it done on the ground. And, Jerick McKinnon has been fine in the past game. He's inconsistent from a fantasy perspective, but he does all the things that Kansas City wants him to do very well. So I don't see where they make a major change. I think this is more of a, hey, we've got an opportunity to shore up our backfield. CEH is out. We don't trust Ronald Jones really, and Melvin Gordon can, do a lot of stuff pretty solid. So I think it's more of a just in case signing more so than a we really want to utilize this guy.
And Major, as our running back guru from the College of the Canyons, you like to let us know almost on a weekly basis. Actually, I think I'm the one who keeps bringing it up each and every week.
You do, and I appreciate it.
What is your thought here on this Kansas City running backs?
Isaiah Pacheco is not a good running back. Yes, he gets yards. Yeah, wait, listen, he gets yards. He runs straight. If the offensive lineman, like his running yards relies on offensive lineman, like he doesn't have any extra anything. He's going to go to the hole, he's going to run hard, and he's going to run straight. And he's, at least with Gordon, he's a full running back. He knows how to play the position. I think McKinnon, I don't know why they don't give him a shot. He performs well whenever he gets a shot, but I like this Melvin Gordon. Like if you can, Melvin Gordon is better than Pacheco and whoever else is in that backfield. So I think they signed him to actually have him play down the stretch, playoffs, whatever you want to call it. So I'm all in on this. I think that fumbling thing, I don't know what that was about, but that's something that's easily fixed. So I'm a Gordon fan, and Pacheco is a good dude. I just don't like his running style at all. It's the ugliest thing I see because I watched the running back position like a hawk, and that is not good.
Well, I just want to point out right now, Ben Kincanis, if you're watching the show right now, Major does not speak for all of us here. We love Rutgers University running backs here, including our man there, Gus Edwards. So I just want to kind of throw that out there.
Gus is the man, yeah. Whenever he's like not hurt, but yeah.
Now, Tera, you've kind of specialized in emotional support for fantasy football, and if not, we're going to kind of give you that role anyway. But recently, let's go to the desert here. Let's talk Patrick Peterson and Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray doesn't care about anybody but Kyler Murray, as per Patrick Peterson and the All Things Covered podcast. By the way, that is a podcast you will find a friend of the show on there, Bryant McFadden, on. So. Hey, Patrick Peterson, he's going out there right now saying Kyler Murray, he don't care about anyone but Kyler Murray. And Kyler Murray, well, he kind of had a response there on Twitter. This isn't true. You know some weird blank. You got my number. If you really felt like this, bro, mentor, you're supposed to call me and tell me, don't drag my name on the podcast so it can grow. Is Patrick Peterson wrong? Now, I guess I want to put this to a Tera. Is he wrong in what he said, or is he wrong because he said it out loud?
He's wrong because he said it out loud. He's not wrong in what he said. I think, I feel like Kyler Murray is kind of a different type of dude, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not sure that Patrick Peterson was really wrong. And I'm not sure that's really the worst thing in the world for somebody to be hyper focused on themselves. But yeah, that's not something that you really want to just go out there and say without any incentive. If you felt that way, you call him, have a conversation if it's really that deep. What was that truly needed?
Man, I feel like I'm about to say like this society today. I felt like an old man. I had to like restrain myself because I was about to like go in on this society like all the old people do. But I'm trying not to be that guy. But like
you're going to be that guy.
I'm going to be that guy because I hate what Patrick Peterson did. Like we all have to say something shocking. We always have to do something like grandiose. We just can't have a podcast where we talk about the sport we love and the players that we love. And we have to say like, Tera, you're an idiot because you're this guy. Like that would get us 1 million views if I called you all kind of B words and all kind of crazy stuff. Like it's crazy to me that society works this way. And Patrick Peterson always seemed like a solid dude to me, but he's even getting caught up into like this social media society. I don't even know what to call it, but I know that someone has a name for it. But I don't like it's disgusting. Like you said, you have his number, call him. If it was a big deal, you would have called him. It's not a big deal. You're just doing this for the ratings. So to me, it's just the game that we all have to play to be successful online. It's stupid.
Well, I think there's something to it because if you remember, I believe the Cardinals actually played the Vikings earlier this year. And I might be wrong here when I'm thinking, well, maybe I'm thinking of the wrong game altogether. But when the Cardinals met Patrick Peterson there, that he was with Arizona or with the Minnesota Vikings, he had a little extra to give this Cardinals team. Maybe not Kyler Murray in particular, but he had a little bit of an attitude. I mean, this is a team that kind of cut him. Maybe he's a little sour because of he's no longer in Arizona, or maybe, you know what? There is something there that we don't know. We don't know what's going behind closed doors. And obviously Arizona, they still haven't extended Kyler Murray. And we can say all we want about all the success that he has had. The team, it feels like they're in a long-term relationship with him where they're like, yeah, we're good with you, but we don't want to commit to you. And that's kind of what it feels like in Arizona. So is there something, Tara, that we are missing as fantasy managers and fantasy analysts?
I feel like they're committed to him. No, I don't think so. Committed to Kyler Murray, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I feel like they're committed to him. I don't feel like there's an issue there at all. No, there's nothing. It's weird. I kind of think about this situation kind of like if you think about Russ, and there's a lot of teammates coming, out of the not out of the woodwork, but out and saying stuff. But they're not current players.
Right.
Current players are not airing out their grievances. They're, more so retired players that are, doing their documentary style, like talk and share information from when we were playing kind of deal. Like if you that's different. If we're like, you can sit down for like a 30 for 30 or an interview or something and do that. But if you're a current player, just kind of like, why? Just keep stuff in house. I don't.
But
I
that's
don't know.
that's
It's
like
weird.
the MO with like when a player retires, they get on TV, they have to say something bad about a teammate or a coach or something. Like it's just so dumb. And it's like a playbook too. So it's not even like original.
So the reason I bring this up, because it kind of fits our whole revenge narrative. We know that Patrick Peterson kind of went from Arizona to Minnesota there. So there could be a little bit of a revenge kind of narrative to it. But we have basically a revenge week of sorts here in week number 13. Deshaun Watson making his season and Browns debut, taking on the Houston Texans. Jeffrey Wilson and Raheem Mostert there. We will talk about them a little bit later in the show. They are playing against their former team as well in the San Francisco 49ers. Latavius Murray, guess what? He's in Denver. He's got a little revenge week as well this week because basically Latavius Murray's played for like 20 different teams. So pretty much every week is a revenge week for him. We've also got A.J. Brown, probably the biggest revenge contest here as he plays the Titans, looking across the field, seeing the guy that replaced him there in Treylon Burks. Don't forget about Kwame St. Brown. He's got a revenge game of sorts. Mike Evans, hey, every time Mike Evans and Marshawn Lattimore face off, that's a revenge game every time. It's like a WWF steel cage type matchup. And Ty Conklin there, Minnesota, he's got a revenge game on the docket there as well.
Did he even play for Minnesota?
Yeah, he was there. I mean, he had a good year last year, right? I mean, look at the numbers he did last year. He got us excited about Irv Smith Jr. once again, right? Let's be honest. Hey, if Tyler Conklin can do that, Irv Smith Jr. can do it. And woo, we're all in on it, me included. I'll be honest, I bought it. I drank the purple Kool-Aid, okay?
Yeah, I did too because of Tara, but I'm not going to get into that.
Hey, now.
So of all these kind of revenge type games here this week, Major, what's the one game that you are most excited about here?
I'm most excited for that 49er game. And who are they playing? My bad. I forgot already.
Miami. I literally just said like two Miami running backs playing their whole team.
But you say so much stuff and you say it so like animated, it makes me forget. It's like the
save it for after retirement. Okay, let's not do it while we're all in the podcast.
We're trying to get our numbers up. You have to talk shit about each other. We have to be mean to each other.
I'm like the fantasy football placeholder, so I got to get out what I can. My claim is laces out right now. Okay,
laces out. No, yeah, I like that Niner Miami game. I think it's gonna be a high scoring game. I don't know if that's revenge game you're talking about, but I think that's going to be the game of the week.
And Tara, of that, those guys making those revenge type games there, that narrative, is there one that sticks out to you a little bit more than the rest?
Yeah, no, I'm not. I can't give a different answer because I am kind of obsessed with this hyper. It's a hyper revenge game to me. Like it's for Jeff Wilson. Like that's super revengey. You were just with them like a month ago.
That I forgot about that one. Good call. What
Like a
about the coaches?
this
Coach
is like a
matchup?
super revenge game. Yeah, exactly. And I love Mike McDaniel. So like I feel like he will know exactly how to attack Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan's going to be, very hyper aware of this, and I feel like this is going to be a very interesting game. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that San Francisco D taking on that Miami offense there. We're talking about efficiency, what Mike McDaniels can do there offensively. I don't know if San Francisco's got the horses to stop it there. I mean, we talk about everything about Tua. I mean, I got my Friday Night Hype show there on Fantasy Points. I want to talk about this matchup in a little bit more depth, but you look at this, I'm excited about this, but hey, I can't turn a blind eye to the A.J. Brown and Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Tennessee Titans as well, because there's some bad blood when it comes to A.J. Brown and how he was handled that whole situation there with Tennessee where, we're kind of concerned about your injury, so we're going to ship you off for just a first-round pick, and we're going to use that first-round pick to select your replacement, who, by the way, Treylon Burks looks like he's trending in the right direction. That all being said, we've kind of broken down a little bit of the news and notes here of week number 12, moving into week number 13 here, and we got to talk about winners and losers here from the previous week. Major, kick it off to your way.
I'm going to go with someone that we never talk about, but he's like one of my favorite players, and I don't even know why. But let's go with Zay Jones. 11 catches, 145 yards, and he scored a game-winning 2-point conversion. He's quietly having a solid season, 58 receptions, 562 yards, and a TD. I wish he got some more touchdowns, but there's a lot of mouths to feed out there in Jacksonville. But he's ever since I think he was with the Raiders, I kind of he caught my attention, and I've always actually, you know what, when he was with the Bills, I've always liked him a little bit. So shout out to Zay Jones and his accomplishments there in that crowded offense without that many targets going out. Like, they don't throw the ball as much as the other teams. But my loser, I gotta go with Alvin Kamara. Like, to be one of the top running backs in the game and to only run for 13 yards and then have 2 fumbles, like that's not good at all. I mean, he did salvage the day a little bit with 37 receiving yards, but he has to do better in that running game. Like, he's one of the best athletes in the whole game, and he's putting up 13 yards. You can't do that.
Yeah, I can't hate on you. I was looking at my losers for the week, and you got on the show sheet for the first time that I can remember before myself or Tara. And I was like, yeah, Alvin Kamara was a complete loser there in week number 12. Now, Tara, I like your winner for week 12 because I don't think he's just a winner for week 12. I think this could be one of those guys that could be a winner for your fantasy football playoffs.
I feel the same way, although he does have a difficult playoff schedule, but I like the way that he is trending. My winner is Trevor Lawrence. 29 of 37 for 321 yards and 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Yay, Trevor, good for you. Spoiler alert here, he is QB 10 on the season, which sounds, and it sounds super impressive, although if you think about it, it's not saying too much because there's been a horrific amount of awful quarterback play. So
I don't break you down.
It's like, this is QB10, fantastic, great job. At the same time, we're like, a lot of our standard guys that are usually our higher quarterbacks have just completely fallen off. But good for Trevor because he is bringing in the new age, and yeah, big step for him. Very happy for him. So that ties into Zay Jones as well, who I also like a lot, and Christian Kirk. All the good stuff. And Travis Etienne. I like the Jags, okay? I like the Jags.
I do too.
Well, I think what's their record? Like 4-7 or something, whatever it was. I mean, I think they were 4-7 going into last week. They won by 1. I think their point differential was actually plus 11. We talked about the week before about Minnesota being a negative there, even at 8-2 at the time, or 9-2, especially after getting pounded on by who did they play last week? They got absolutely destroyed. I can't remember. Either way, I think the Jaguars actually have less. Yeah,
Dallas.
I think the Jaguars actually have a better points for, points against differential right now than even the Minnesota Vikings have. So that should tell you all you need to know about how we feel about the Jacksonville Jaguars there.
Yeah,
it's someone that has a very poor points for right now. Tara, who's the player that you're hating on this week?
So Jeff Bell, you guys know Jeff Bell, posted a very fun stat today that I loved and I wanted to include here. Russell Wilson was QB 33 in week 12. You guys know how many quarterbacks there are that could also there are 32 teams in the NFL, and he was QB 33. He got beat out by Jordan Love, who came in the last minute. This was not even a full game replacement or anything. This is not a Mike White situation. Jordan Love came in and did just enough to beat out Russell Wilson on the week. Soak that in. And it wasn't even a hard matchup, man. Russ, what's going on?
Is Russ a system quarterback?
I believe Pete Carroll might attest to that.
I mean, Gino looks like a new guy out there, and Russ looks like Gino used to look. So it's like, what's going on here?
Hard to argue the numbers right now because Geno Smith is quietly putting together an MVP caliber season.
Right.
Now, for me, speaking of MVPs, listen up. I got to give my man, Josh Jacobs. There ain't no running back dead zone that can hold this man down right now. Let's put some respect on his name. He's more than just that poster child for the running back dead zone. Josh Jacobs, 39 touches, over 300 scrimmage yards, 2 touchdowns while battling a calf strain. Crazy to think that Josh Jacobs leads the NFL in rushing yards right now with 1,159, more than 100 yards than Derrick Henry has posted, who's had 30 more carries. Crazier yet, he leads all backs across the board in both standard and half PPR formats in fantasy football, and is now just 13 points away from catching Austin Eckler, who has 255.1 in PPR formats. We were talking just about on the show a couple weeks ago about Christian McCaffrey possibly catching Austin Eckler and how hard that was. It never crossed any of our minds that it could be Josh Jacobs being that guy. Jacobs is already ahead of him in half point and standard leagues. If he catches him in PPR, I know he's not going to get any MVP type consideration here, but that should tell you all you need to know about what Josh Jacobs has been able to do. And of course, I got more facts and stats on Jacobs here coming at you on that Friday Night Hype Show because the numbers just keep continually adding up in his favor. Now, a guy that I am hating from last week happens to be Gabriel Davis. The Detroit Lions, they allowed the third most receiving yards, the third most fantasy football points this season, and all he managed to do against one of the worst secondaries in the NFL was 4 receptions for 38 yards. Is Gabriel Davis just a boom bust play each and every week? He was being touted as a top 20, top 15 wide receiver at the beginning of the season. And now I don't even feel comfortable starting him. I'd rather start Garrett Wilson, maybe even Elijah Moore at this point over because, hey, let's be honest, Elijah Moore, he's working with Magic Mike White there. So he may have a little bit more play in the rest of the season than what we're going to get out of Gabriel Davis.
Yikes.
Yeah, Major. I went there. Now, with that all being said, I kind of introduced this a little bit here. We talked about Gabriel Davis. We're going to be able to see him on Thursday Night Football there as the Buffalo Bills take on the New England Patriots. Listen, this is going to be a good old-fashioned AFC East showdown here in New England, in Foxborough there. And when I pull up these numbers that are major, just kind of look at some of these props that you are looking at here for this week. What are some of the ones that kind of catch your attention?
Yeah, I went with the receivers because I honestly think it's going to be a running game, but the props on these receivers were a little bit low, so got to take advantage when you see that. So Jacoby Myers, higher than 50.5 receiving yards. I'm going to pound on that every single time. So we got Jacoby. He's beat this mark 7 out of the 9 games he played this season, and the Bills are giving up 240 yards per game. I'm going to let Matt talk about Jacoby. That's his guy. And then my second one is Gabe. You know, Matt just kind of went down on him a little bit there, but I think he is a boom and bust. I think he busted this last week. So I think this week he's going to – that sounds crazy. Pause. He's going to boom this week. Gabe higher than 53.5 receiving yards. And like I said, he's beat this mark 5 times this year. The Pats are giving up 221 yards per game. And I can't even think anymore because what I just said sounded crazy. I had a pound in there and I had a bust in there. Pause.
And there was something else too.
Pause.
Y'all can't cut any of this.
Cut all that out, please. And it was funny because I heard it, but I tried to be professional. I'm trying to be professional, and Tara's face, she tried to hold it, and I seen every time I said something, she cracked a little bit. So yeah, I tried to be a grown up and like, you know what? I'm a grown man. I'm not. It's okay. I don't have to say pause, but Tara made me say pause, so thank you.
I could pass up the first one, but after it just kept coming out.
But
You're
yeah,
like, is this
That was
part of the show?
amazing.
Is this part of the shtick? Is he running a shtick by me here?
no,
That was
that was
amazing.
totally like trying to freestyle, and it just all came out bad. And I heard it, but I tried not to let it affect me. But Tara just messed it all the way up. Thank you, buddy.
Look, there's some fantasy football podcasts that include this type of stuff. So I mean, you know,
Watch me
We're
get all the
just trying to,
calls.
you know, we're just going to go after a new demographic here. So you keep doing what you
Exactly.
got to do. If this all of a sudden hits, I mean, I think we've got a new show on our hands.
I think
Now,
so too.
This will
Before
be
we
the
move
first
into
and
the
last time.
DFS, before we move into the DFS portion here, after last week's 33-26 loss in Minnesota, the New England Patriots find themselves on the outside looking in on that AFC playoff picture at just 6-5. The Patriots trail both the 7-4 Jets and the 8-3 Bills when it comes to booking a spot in that wild card weekend. Currently, the Bills, they hold that fifth spot thanks to that 28-25 Thanksgiving victory over the Detroit Lions, which was a much closer game than probably should have been. Now, for the Patriots, this isn't what you would call a must-win game, but it's about as close as you can get to a must-win game here in week number 13. As the Jets, they play the Bears, which should be a win already kind of in that column there. Meanwhile, the Chargers, they host the 4-7 Raiders. So the Patriots have a little bit of an uphill battle in this contest. And I feel obliged here right now since Major didn't talk about any props on Ramondre Stevenson. Now, I'm going to give this one right here, right now, because Major, you can probably recycle this later on in the show too. Stevenson has been a man on a mission here since week number 3. We know what he's capable of doing on the ground. 680 yards on 151 carries. Now look at his numbers in the passing game since week 3. Stevenson sits second in target share at 22%, third in receptions at 47, fourth in targets at 55 amongst the running back position. You can essentially take away anything that he has done on the ground and just kind of focus on those receiving numbers. And basically, he's Mike Evans as a running back. If you compare those numbers straight across, he's putting up Mike Evans type numbers as a running back. So let's give Ramondre Stevenson more credit here because, you know, he doesn't get enough credit on this show. And of course, I got to give a shout out to my boy there, Sandro, because he loves himself birthday matchups. Tara, you know Sandro, you kind of talked to him there. One of the best producers on XM radio there. He loves himself some birthday narrative. And Stephon Diggs, he just had a birthday there on Tuesday. Heading into Thursday Night Football, that birthday matchup continues. And yes, Stephon Diggs can have his cake and eat it too on Thursday. So I'm excited to see what he does this week. And Tara, give us a little DFS breakdown of this contest.
Yeah, you know, I'll start off with Ramondre Stevenson. He is the third highest priced player, but I think he is well worth it. We've already talked about the fact that Damian Harris is out. When we look at the amount of targets that Ramondre Stevenson has had, you know, I guess kind of after Ty Montgomery went down, it's just been such an incredible boost to his fantasy production. So from my perspective, I feel like he's a must have in your DFS lineup for sure. Great captain option as well. Then when we look at the remainder of the slate, you know, we've got a few interesting options. This is kind of maybe the one time where I would take a stab on Dawson Knox. He's not typically someone who I would want to look at in a DFS lineup, but the price is good. It's a good matchup. This is actually one of the things that New England is the most vulnerable against is the tight end position, giving up a decent amount of fantasy points to them. So I've got a nice green light there for him. And then obviously, you know, you can't go wrong with including Josh Allen. Obviously, decent captain as well. He is pricey, obviously. So there is that portion of that and probably very popular. But if we look at some low end options that I find very interesting too, because obviously, you know, the New England receivers aren't exactly high price, but this is technically a good matchup for them because Buffalo has been reeling a little bit on defense against the pass. So, Jacoby Myers is very interesting at 7,200. And then if you dip down a little bit, we've also got Nelson Aguilar, who made a pretty decent, I don't want to say comeback, but a pretty decent reintroduction into fantasy production this season, because he has definitely been on the lower end, but had a nice thriving game with the missed time that Jacoby Myers had last week. So it was good to see him step up as well. And he is priced at 4,800 on DraftKings. So I think there's a lot of decent options that you can go with. But another thing that you can do is, again, this is one of those games where you can focus heavily on the defense. Both of these defenses are very viable options in DFS. They are pricey because, well, I mean, they're very good defenses, so you're not going to be able to pay down for them. But I think they're really good options to go with if you want to see this as more of one of those Thursday night defensive struggles. Fantasy points are, a little bit limited, and the defenses can really pay off.
Can you guys give me a shout out every time you guys say Ramondre though? Like, I love that you guys are both like, welcome to the party, man. I love it over here. It's like, it's awesome. Thanks, guys.
Major's like the guy who went to the club like 4 hours early before anyone even showed up.
Yeah, you got to map it out.
I started like talking about Ramondre Stevenson. Now everyone knows. It's like, okay, yeah, it was Damian Harris last season, and it was Damian Harris last season. So Major was
still
like
Ramondre for me.
I get it. I mean, you do what you want to believe.
I feel like you have to watch. I feel like you have to, if you listen to the podcast, I feel like you also need to watch the YouTube, like just to appreciate.
I don't like her one bit. I don't.
I mean, you can't get these facial expressions by listening, right? You can't just see Major's like.
No, it's not.
Different levels
it's her
of
face.
Disgust.
It's her face. It's her face. She's funny, but she's not.
Think I'm slick.
Yeah, not slick. Right, well, not funny. None of that.
Well, those fantasy football trade lines, they're not slick either. And they're just around the corner. So let's try not to trip anyone up here. Major, who's a player you're trading for and trading away? And by the way, I'm going to probably mute you.
Well, I'm going to trade for Chase Claypool. I said it fast so you couldn't like. Oh, this is the other. Okay. Yeah, but like with Mooney, again, like another one of your guys, he's out, condolences, you know what I mean? But the Bears have nobody to throw the ball to. I mean, they don't really throw the ball anyway, but like he's probably gonna he's been getting good targets as well. So I'm gonna let's lock in on Chase as being the man for the rest of the season. And he gives the Bears a great opportunity to find out what they have in Claypool. Maybe he could be that wide receiver one they're looking for. I don't know. He looked pretty good at the beginning of his career with the Steelers. So let's do that. And then, the person I'm trading is Josh Jacobs. Said that one fast, so he couldn't mute me either. So, he's coming off 2 monster weeks. It's the best time to kind of deal him, because, the Raiders are the Raiders, and they're going to find a way to mess this up. They're going to try to throw the ball more than they run the ball, even though they had somebody run for 300 yards last week. So I don't know. His next few games.
It's not more impressive that he leads the league in rushing while the Raiders are trying to Raider at the same time. He leads the league
in rushing because of that last game, really.
Yeah, but he's doing it on 30 less attempts than what Derrick Henry has.
Because of this last game.
Derrick Henry had a 200-yard rushing game too. Are we going to take that away? It's a game. It's a game. It's a game.
Nah. And plus Jacobs, that the rest of the season looks pretty steep for him. He got like San Francisco in there. I think he had who else is on there? I know you know their schedule. Who else was on there?
Yeah, I know during the playoffs they have like the first and second toughest matchups there on week 15 and week 17. So
I got it, guys. Don't worry. It's so LA, both LA teams. So Chargers, Rams, New England, Pittsburgh, San Francisco.
The only one that he can probably run on is like the Chargers. Everyone else is going to be a tough matchup for him. So
do you really think that Aaron Donald's going to play another game this season? He just went on the injury report. He's missing this week. Yeah, the Rams are in full out shutter down type mode here right now. I promise you at the end of this game this week, Jalen Ramsey's going to have a hamstring injury. He's going to be shut down too.
I give you that. And that's a great point. So, I mean, he still got those other teams. So, it's going to be rough for him. And like, again, the Raiders are going to find a way to like Raider this thing up a little bit. And, they're going to try to get Derek Carr going and throw the ball like 90 times a game and give him the ball like 5. So we'll figure it out.
All right. Well, moving along to Tara, what do you got for us? Who are you trading for?
I am trading for Kyron Williams as a cheap trade because obviously this is not a high profile offer. But if you maybe want to get a little throw in or do just a little cheapy, and you're in a deep league, Kyron Williams is one that is interesting to me because he is, first of all, we talked about the Rams, their offense being absolutely atrocious. They're going to have to play from behind. You don't want the guy that is getting exclusively work on the ground, which is Cam Akers. You want the guy that can, get out there and be a little bit more dynamic and catch some passes, and that is Kyron Williams. So I think the guy who is going to have the higher upside in this Rams offense is going to be Kyron Williams moving forward. And then my trade away, and I think I might have done I might have done 2 trade fours. So might have been filling out this spreadsheet a little bit quickly here. So I'm going to give you 2 trade fours and not a trade away. You can trade for Cole Kmet. For the same reason that Major was talking about. Darnell Mooney is out. And from my perspective, Chase Claypool is Chase Claypool. Justin Fields is going to want somebody that he knows he can rely on, and that has proven to be Cole Kmet. So I can see where Kmet can be a fantasy asset moving forward, and I trust him a little bit more.
All right, well, moving forward, we're going to move into week number 13 here. We're going to start talking about some starts and sits. Starting with the quarterback position. Major, kick us off. Let's talk about Deshaun Watson. I mean, it's not like we're not going to talk about him at all the rest of this week.
Right, or the rest of the season. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very interesting game. There's so much drama surrounding this game. First, Watson hasn't played a game since the end of 2020. He's making his debut against the team that drafted him, and he was like an all-star, and they loved him, and all of a sudden they just threw him out, and there's a lot of controversy around that as well. And then the part that I read today is the lawyer and his accusers are like, they're going to be in the building. So that's going to make for some high drama as well. Like every pass he throws, just be ready for those cutaways to the ladies in the stands and then the lawyer and everything. But on the plus side, Amari Cooper is quietly having a really good season. DPJ has come a long way. He's that wide receiver 2 that they need. They have one of the best running backs in the game in Chubb. That young defense is pretty good. And Houston pass defense is giving up 216 yards per game. So all that stuff added up. If Deshaun can kind of block out some of the distractions and the hoopla of the game and all the drama, I think he can do well there. I mean, Jacoby Brissett looked decent in that offense, so I think Deshaun with more talent is going to look a little bit more appealing in that offense. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but for my sit, I'm gonna go Ryan Tannehill. He's had a nice little run the last 3 weeks. He's averaging 293 yards per game, and he had 4 touchdowns, but he's facing the second best pass defense. When Philly, they only give up 184 yards per game. So with that math, I'm still not a believer in Tannehill, but he's starting to win me over just a little bit, throwing 300 yards and stuff like that. And he looks like he has command of that offense more so than he did in the past. So, I'm still not aboard yet, but I'm going to give him a shot, but I don't know about this week.
Well, Tara, you got your finger on the pulse there in Houston. I mean, you're probably hearing some things that maybe I'm not hearing and what Major may not be hearing. So what are you hearing from Houston, just in general, the public, about Deshaun Watson's return?
Nothing. I'm staying far away from that. No, it's I'm sure that, look, for reference, I'm literally 30 minutes out the city anyway. So this is just I'm not even going anywhere near any of this weekend because I'm sure it's going to be absolute chaos.
You don't want to be in a stadium for that? Don't you want to get some of that energy? She said no.
Well,
not at all.
If you're not feeling the Houston energy, what energy are you feeling for your quarterback start here in week number 13?
Good job, Matt.
I am feeling the Mike White energy. We are chasing the points here with Mike White coming off a 22 completion on 28 targets for 315 yards and 3 touchdown game. Everyone was so happy. Garrett Wilson was happy. Elijah Moore was ecstatic. He feels justified. And while you may say, hey, that was against Chicago, that's not a good team. Well, Minnesota is actually worse in terms of their pass defense.
Right.
Absolutely atrocious. They just gave up the best game of Mac Jones' entire year. Scratch that, of his entire career. That's how bad it is. So yes, start anyone and any receiver that is playing against, or any quarterback that is playing against Minnesota. My sit of the week, speaking of Minnesota, is actually going to be Kirk Cousins. And the reasoning here is, well, Kirk Cousins was fantastic last week, which was a surprise. It was a big game, a big primetime Thanksgiving game, and it was against New England, who obviously we've talked about is a very tough defense. So that was very shocking, but I do believe that he is poised for a letdown performance here against the New York Jets. They're a team that is allowed, this is in the top 10 of least fantasy points allowed to quarterbacks. This is just not a good setup for him. I see multiple turnovers in this game, not a lot of upside. So I lean away from Kirk Cousins and I lean towards Mike White, oddly enough.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Mac Jones. I remember last week on this show, someone touted Mac Jones, McCorkle Jones, mac and cheese, to have a great contest there on Thanksgiving because the Vikings are horrible and injury depleted on the back end. So I'm not going to say who that was because, you know, I'm sure whoever it was is a very humble individual. But for me, I'm going to move on to this week's contest. And my start of the week is a big fan here of the show. I mean, they've never watched the show, but I'm sure they heard the nice things that we were saying about him. They would enjoy it. And it's Trevor Lawrence because he gets to play the Detroit Lions coming off the best game of his career. Lawrence and the Jaguars face the Lions, who just happen to be allowing the most fantasy points per game this season to opposing quarterbacks, allowing 23.75 per contest. If you can get yourself 23 fantasy points out of your quarterback, out of Trevor Lawrence, you have to feel pretty good about that. So, yes, I'm firing up Trevor Lawrence this week against the Detroit Lions. Christian Kirk, Zay Jones, Marvin Jones, all the Joneses. We're Joneses to the Joneses here in Duval County this week. And my sit of the week, Lamar Jackson. Oh, yeah. I gotta go big. I gotta make a big splash when we talk about the sits. We know what the Denver Broncos can do in the passing game. There's no one to pass the ball to in Baltimore. So it's like, okay, you know, Lamar, maybe you can pick up some yards rushing, but they also sit third in the NFL in rushing yards allowed to the quarterback position, allowing just 124 or 125 so far this season. So you can expect Lamar Jackson maybe to do some damage with his legs. I wouldn't count on it there. So I'm kind of proceeding with caution this week and fading Lamar Jackson this week. If you have a better option out there, like Trevor Lawrence, I'd rather start Trevor Lawrence over Lamar Jackson because of those matchups this week and the fact that it's Mark Andrews or bust there for the Baltimore Ravens in that passing attack. So I believe that Lamar Jackson is a talented individual. I just don't like this matchup. You throw Patrick Surtain there, probably on Mark Andrews. I mean, he's a big physical corner, so he could probably cover a tight end there. And you've got really no one else to step up there for Baltimore, which is going to make things much more difficult for Lamar Jackson. Now, turning our attention to the running back position, Major, I feel like I should give you the spotlight on this one here as you continue to talk about.
I don't need it because you guys like stole the thunder away from it now. Like I don't even want the spotlight anymore. Like Ramondre Stevenson, I'm not going to even say it like I used to because everybody's on the bandwagon now. But with Harris being out, we all know Ramondre is going to get that bulk of the work. You know, Dre's performed well. He's worked his way to be RB8, like in the whole thing. So like, shout out to my guy for that. I believed in you before anyone else did. Remember that when you come on the show, it's going to be a whole situation going on here. And Buffalo has one of the best defenses, but they give up 117 total yards to running backs. And like what Matt said earlier today, if you take out Ramondre's rushing, he's still that guy through the air. So like he's Christian Kirk. No, he's who's that guy out in Austin Eckler? They kind of look alike. It's funny. He's Austin Eckler out there doing his thing, the PPR king. Let's give that to Ramondre Stevenson. And for my sit, I'm gonna go with Damian Pierce. Like, it's been a rough 2 weeks, man. Totaling 16 yards in 2 games. Yeah, I don't know how you do that, but but Cleveland's giving up 132 yards per game to running backs. But Cleveland defense, I think they'll play a little bit harder this week to kind of help out their new quarterback. I think it's gonna rejuvenate that team a little bit. So we'll see what happens out there in Cleveland. But before we go to Tera, Matt, quick question, like a mailbag type of question for both of you guys. This week, do I start Trevor Lawrence or Tua?
Well, I'm still rolling Tua. I mean, Tua was on this. He was the show before the show, right? I mean, we got to back our boys there. Tua's been one of our guys all season long.
But Tua versus the Niners.
It don't matter. That
Okay.
49ers secondary is not what it was at the beginning of the season.
Gotcha.
I mean, there's not a single player on that team that's going to be able to match Jalen Waddle or Tyreek Hill. Unless Nick Bosa absolutely wrecks this game, which I don't think he will. Mike McDaniels is going to have a way to neutralize him. I'm pretty confident in that. So I'm okay starting Tua Tagovailoa here this week. I think he's like QB6 in my rankings.
And also, anyone play Lamar Jackson. If Matt says sit him, play him. He's probably going to have like 10,000 yards in one game. But to you, Tera.
My start of the week. I already talked about him. Jeff Wilson versus San Francisco. Yeah, it's a terrible matchup on paper. San Francisco is literally the worst matchup for running backs. So why am I starting him? Raheem Mostert is probably coming back as well. I'm just super in on the revenge game that we talked about earlier, the revenge game of a team you were literally just with like a month ago. And I'm also in this game because I think it's going to be very competitive. The Dolphins just simply didn't have a competitive game last week at all. And a lot of us were really counting on Jeff Wilson to perform against an awful Houston run defense, but the game just got out of hand so quickly, and it just didn't bode well from a fantasy perspective for anyone. So I expect a nice bounce back game here, a very competitive game, and a tough coaching battle between Mike McDaniel and Kyle Shanahan. So I'm excited for this one. My sit of the week is going to be Miles Sanders versus Tennessee. And I know it would maybe feel crazy to bench someone after scoring literally 30 plus fantasy points in PPR. But yes, I'm advising that you do it because after 21 carries, 143 yards, and 2 touchdowns last week, and his season high of 3 receptions, I just don't think it's going to happen again. It's a complete anomaly against a poor Packers defense, and it's not going to repeat. This week he has Tennessee, a very strong defense against the run and very weak against the pass. So this is more of a A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith kind of game, not a Miles Sanders game. He goes back to the pumpkin that he was unfortunately before.
Oh,
yeah. No, I feel bad. He's a good, he's a good running back, but
yeah. We're talking about a guy that has, it's amazing to think that he's averaged over 5 yards per carry for his career. That's how effective Miles Sanders has been with his touches. And could you imagine what San Francisco would be able to do with a running back right now, considering that Elijah Mitchell's out for the next 6 to 8 weeks and Christian McCaffrey's on some load management? Just imagine if they only had a running back who could help them out during this process.
Oh.
I guess, whatever. I guess Jordan Mason can get the trick done. Now, for me, my start of the week, I'm going to go with David Montgomery of the Chicago Bears. Look, I wanted to use Dameon Pierce because I know Major talked about how difficult he's had recently. But if you're looking for a get-right quick type game, how about playing a run defense that's allowing 29.1 fantasy points per contest, which is the second most this week? But you know what? I'm going to pivot away from that. I'm not going to go there. I don't want to belittle what Major's already said, but I think I just pretty much did. But
I'm about to say too late. Thanks.
We've got another running back who has already had success against a defense that he's already seen this season in David Montgomery. In the last meeting against the Packers, there wasn't a dang thing Green Bay could do to stop the run. Tero, I think we even talked about this game way back in week 1, week 2, somewhere way back. Now, Montgomery, he carried the ball 15 times for 122 yards, while Khalil Herbert added another 38 yards on 4 attempts. Green Bay is currently allowing the 6th most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. And the Bears, even without Justin Fields, they can still run the ball. That has been their identity all season long. And by the way, Justin Fields hasn't been ruled out this week, as he has gotten some limited work so far in practice this week. Now, my sit of the week, again, I'm going off the deep end here. I'm going for another big name here, and I'm going to say Saquon Barkley versus the Washington Commanders. Washington, they have a couple dudes in the middle that can absolutely wreck things there. Considered Pro Bowlers there, Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne. They're clogging things up. They're basically like the anti-plumber out there. They are clogging lanes up. There's no one getting through on that, unless you want to call Saquon Barkley a turd. And anyway, he's still getting plugged up no matter how you want to look at it. Now, the Commanders, they are allowing the third fewest fantasy points to running backs this season, allowing just 17.58 per contest, and they've allowed just 3 rushing touchdowns. So for me, Saquon Barkley is a sit. And you know what? He hasn't had big weeks the last couple of weeks. So I'm wondering if the workload in which Barkley's had the first half of the season, if it's starting to wear on him towards the back half right now. Now, Major, we're going to move on to the wide receivers here. What do you got for us?
I'm going to go with Mara St. Brown. I love the Raws, man. All the Raws. Let's go. But St. Brown's coming off a wide receiver 3 performance last week, putting up 122 yards and a TD. And, look for him to continue his great play against the Jags defense that's given up 258 yards per game to receivers. And he's just the man in that offense. I've watched a few of his games, and like the command of that offense, they look to him. He's the leader on that offense. He's like the man out there at such a young age. So shout out to a USC alum, Amon-Ra St. Brown. And for my sit, I'm going to go big. I'm going to go with, I don't know if it's too big, but it's a big name. Deebo Samuels. Yeah, man, he's been dealing with a quad injury. And he's coming off a bad week. He only had 43 yards last week. And that Miami defense is playing well. And I think they're all going to be jacked up and ready to go for, to protect their coach or whatnot. So, and I think he's going to scheme Deebo out the game. You got to get Deebo out of there if you're going to do anything against the 49ers. So I think that's going to be the focus. And I don't think Jimmy G is good enough to force a ball to a player. So I think Deebo is going to be shut down this week.
It'll be interesting to see what Deebo's role is with a Christian McCaffrey under that workload management type thing there. Will we see an increase in that? Because recently, we look at since McCaffrey's been there, that workload has not. That target share, I think, has only been above 23% once out of the 4 games in which Samuel and McCaffrey have both been in the lineup. Prior to that, I think his lowest was 25%. So we're talking about a guy who's seen a massive drop-off. Now, Tara, a guy who's not basically seen a huge increase here and had some big games so far this season. Who do you got starting at wide receiver?
It's Zay Jones, and he is on a hot streak. Yes, Major's happy because he talked about him earlier. And he's on a hot streak, but this is not the first time that we have seen high-level performances. It's up and it's down. He is a wide receiver too, and Jacksonville has obviously had their ups and downs, but this is not an anomaly, what we're seeing from Zay Jones recently. Over the past 2 weeks, 19 receptions on 24 targets. I'm very excited for this game, and I think we all are, because we've talked about Trevor Lawrence and Amon-Ra St. Brown and Zay Jones, and we're excited for this game because, it's either going to be, from my perspective, it's either going to be like the most amazing shootout ever or complete trash. It is because we're all in on it. You know how it goes, like when everyone is in on a game and it's like, oh my gosh. And then all of a sudden we have a complete letdown. Cross our fingers that doesn't happen, because this is such a good matchup for both of these teams to be able to exploit their bad defenses and continue their offensive pushes forward. So I'm excited to see Zay Jones. And not just for this week as well, man. For the remainder of the season, I am very in on Zay Jones. My sit of the week.
Before? I think you're the first person to ever say that.
I've said it before too. I've thought about going back through, like, because I've said his name all the time on waiver videos. I've thought about going through all of my waiver videos and clipping every time I say Zay Jones, because I feel like this is my time to shine since I've said the man's name like 5,000 times. It's like I've been on Zay Jones for a while now. And this is like my major moment where I say like, no, this is my dude, and I like make up like a a catchphrase for him or something like Zay Jones. No, it's not cool. You can't say it.
Yeah, you
Gosh.
gotta.
All right, I'm gonna rename him. I'm gonna give him a cool name. My sit of the week is gonna be Gabe Davis. We talked about Gabe Davis. Unfortunately, I'm not in on him versus New England. Obviously, Bill Belichick is known for trying to shut down the best receiver, which is obviously Stephon Diggs. But this is Josh Allen. You think a little, scheming is going to make him avoid Stephon Diggs? Absolutely not. The man's a gamer. He is still going to target Stephon Diggs as his number one look. And hey, even if this Isaiah McKenzie emergence is real as well, it's possible that Gabe Davis is just the odd man out here. So I'm not in on Gabe Davis this week, unfortunately.
Well, now it's my turn to talk about the wide receiver that I'm in on this week. How about Garrett Wilson against the Minnesota Vikings? I mean, fire it up here. Hey, I liked Mac Jones last week against his Vikings secondary, so I'm going to like Magic Mike White and Garrett Wilson.
Can't even say it right.
Yeah, you know what? Try to understand. He's a magic man, mama. Now that I can say, a little shout out to Hart. We got to get them in here whenever I get a chance to as well. But look, Minnesota, we talked about how they were depleted that last week. The reinforcements haven't come, and they are allowing 41.2 fantasy points to receivers, which is the second most over the last 4 weeks. Opposing receivers have caught 60 of 80 targets for 4 touchdowns and 782 yards over that time. And we just saw what Garrett Wilson was able to do. Now, some of those numbers were a little bit padded there because it looked like a sniper got Eddie Jackson on that one play. So make of that what you will. Now, for me on my sit, again, I'm going big game hunting here. Well, I guess he's not really big game because CD Lamb was just a little lamb. His fleece was white as snow, but everywhere that the Colts went, CD Lamb was going to be a no-show. Now, for me, hey, you know why this works this way? Because I need a big week from CD Lamb in multiple leagues. So I'm praying right now to the fantasy gods that the reverse jinx comes through for me. For Lamb, the Colts, they do present a difficult matchup for opposing wide receivers, having allowed, I think, like 26.5 fantasy points here per contest over the last 4 weeks. Expect Lamb to see plenty of Stephon Gilmore here this week. If Lamb somehow is able to avoid Gilmore, then Isaiah Rodgers steps in there. He's going to be waiting for them. And Rodgers is allowing just 0.11 fantasy points per route run this season. And if you don't know that metric very well, that's pretty darn good as far as the defender is concerned. So I'm a little bit concerned about that matchup this week. Now, when we look at matchups, let's talk about tight ends now. What's a matchup major that you are digging this week at the tight end position?
I'm gonna go with David Njoku. I know he's kind of hurt, so I don't know if he's even going to play this game. But I'm gonna go with any tight end that Cleveland has. You got Watson coming back playing his first game. I think he's going to use that tight end as a safety net. And Houston gives up 48 yards per game to tight ends. It doesn't sound like much, but that's a lot considering like what tight ends play been this year. And for my sit, I'm gonna go with Tera's guy, Cole Kmet. I don't even really know why. Actually, I do know why. But being a tight end, what am I writing here? Being a tight end in a run first offense is really hard because tight ends are, you have to block most of the time, and then your hands are getting beat up, and it's kind of hard to catch the ball after blocking for so long. And he's facing a number one pass defense when it comes to tight ends. So I think Green Bay is going to kind of like lock him down because, like we said earlier, there's no receivers and no one to really throw the ball to. So I think that's why, whatever they do to tight ends is working in Green Bay. So I think Claypool is going to be the guy out there. But we have to stop talking about tight ends until they can, like, maybe we do it like on tight end day or something. But who you got?
Well, Tera, I'm going to give you the rebuttal for the tight end position.
I already gave the rebuttal. I was going to hide it, but you didn't even see it. So it's a surprise anyway. I am starting Cole Kmet. Contrary to Major, I am in on him in this matchup. Again, I talked about this earlier. Darnell Mooney is out, and while Chase Claypool can, in theory, step up, he's a very talented receiver. Justin Fields is somebody who needs to, connect with those guys that he relies on and trusts the most. And obviously, he had that connection with Darnell Mooney, and he has that connection with Cole Kmet. And, we're unfortunately coming off of a down game for Cole Kmet, but before that, he was on absolute fire and was incredibly reliable for Justin Fields. So I believe that Justin Fields will play this week. And if he plays, I am 100% starting Cole Kmet and feeling comfortable with it. I am not starting Hunter Henry. I'm not the biggest Hunter Henry fan in the world. But unfortunately, this is going to be a down week for him. Do not let last week's 15 fantasy point performance fool you. This is still a guy that is more than likely going to go out there and get you literally one reception. It has happened over and over and over again. The 15-point performance is an anomaly, not the standard. Sit Hunter Henry.
Yeah, knowing New England, Jonnu Smith, or was it Jonnu, how you say his name? He's going to be the guy this week. They always do that. So I don't know why they rotate players like that, but you're right.
Yeah, I think 2 weeks ago it was Jonas Smith, 4 for 40. Last week it was Hunter Henry for 3 for 63 and a touchdown. So, yeah, it's probably going to be like Dalton Keene or something.
Exactly.
This week. For me, basically, I'm going to say save us all some time. Any tight end that's playing in that Raiders-Chargers game is going to be a good start. That's Foster Moreau there. That's Gerald Everett there. But I'm going to go with Foster Moreau here. The tight end position has been a total and complete crapshoot each and every week in, week out. So why would this week be any different? Start your studs, because you know what? There's only 2 of them. And after that, we're playing tight end roulette. And this week I've landed on Black 87. Moreau, he's done a pretty adequate job there filling in for much of the season there for Darren Waller. And this matchup against the Chargers, it's a favorable one, as the Chargers have allowed 230 yards and 3 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. Bonus start, because, hey, we need all the tight end love that we can get. My man, Jawan Johnson, as the Saints, they face the Bucs, who have allowed the 4th most fantasy points to the position. Now, my sit on the other side of that Bucs and Saints coin there is Cade Otton, Cameron Brate, whoever the tight end is against the New Orleans Saints. This is not a streamer option this week. You don't want it. Move along here. New Orleans has allowed just 1 touchdown and 403 yards, 2 tight ends this season. Avoid at all costs. But what you don't want to avoid at all costs, here we go. fantasypoints.com. Use promo code 22Vipers10. That's going to save you 10% off that subscription. You get that subscription, you get access to that Discord channel. And if you want more things that you want out of this, how about you check out Major there every Sunday on the fantasypoints.com YouTube channel there, as him and Nick Script, they break down the week's matchups. They missed last week. They're coming strong here this week. And our very own Tara, she was out there with D-Bro and Joe Pisapia there with the Fantasy Pro show there. You can catch her with Howard Bender there with Fantasy Alarm. When anything with the word fantasy in it, Tara is going to be there with fantasy football. It's Tara time all the time. And, of course, you catch my Friday Night Hype show there on Fantasy Points YouTube channel as well, and the primetime previews on the Vipers Network. With that all being said, this has been another episode of the Dynasty Vipers ViperCast, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group, and we will see you all next week.